Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Masters of Marketing. In this episode, I have with me Ksenia Zaykova. She's an expert in PR and communications, and we discuss topics like how to work with a limited budget within the PR and communication space, what pitfalls to avoid, how to build credibility for investors and potential consumer, and much, much more. Tune in and enjoy the episode. Ksenia,
Yes.
welcome to Masters of Marketing.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Who is Ksenia? What's your elevator pitch?
Oh, so we're pitching now from the very
Elevator
beginning.
pitch. Yeah.
So my name is Ksenia Zaykova. I'm a Chief Communications Officer at AngelsDeck Global Ventures, which is a global angel investor network focused on syndicated deals. I'm also a Not Communications founder, and this is like a tiny boutique communication agency working with B2B, tech, and VC and private equity clients.
Okay. So PR and communications.
PR and
That's the
communications,
expertise.
that's the field,
Yeah.
yes.
And entrepreneurship.
Kind of, yeah.
Of course. Nice. So I have listed some questions and we start with the first one. So we know that startups mainly and beginner entrepreneurs operate with limited budgets for obvious reasons. How do you think they could prioritize their communication efforts to maximize their impact, their marketing impact, communications impact, without really spending a lot?
That's a great question that kind of like being asked a lot. But I would approach it rather from the strategic point of view than the tactical one, because I would start with asking myself what is the end result that I want to see out of my communication or PR campaign in general. So, for example, like, do we want to get more awareness, or are we aiming at leads or engagement? Or, I don't know, are we trying to get salience in front of like a different, like in front of the category of specific target audience, for example, investors or something like that? So that would define my main objective at the campaign. So that would lead me to the toolkit that I would use, and not spending like, my extra budget or extra efforts on something that wouldn't get me closer to the goal that I'm kind of like setting for myself. And why I think this is highly important is because we are living in an era of information overload. And for example, you go to LinkedIn and you see so many stories and posts about like from the people who share their success cases, which is great, which is kind of like they share such valuable content. However, like it can derail some people from getting to the point where they want to be. Like they would use the toolkit that these people are sharing rather than something that would help them to achieve the end result. So so I think I'd start with setting the definitive objective towards like what do I want to get out of it. And then I would either consult someone who is experienced in this field, or maybe like gather as much context as I can in order to define like the toolkit that would allow me to operate with less budgets.
All right. So let's say tech,
Sure.
e-commerce. I started an e-commerce business and bootstrapped, so no investors, working with a limited budget. I don't want to overspend because I don't know if I'm going to get the results. And that's the case with most businesses, with most startups. They don't have the money. And if they want to spend more, they would probably have to borrow the money from somewhere.
Yeah.
So they would say, let us start growing, making money. So it's always this dilemma. Do we invest and see what happens? Or let us grow organically, prove that it's working, and then we scale. We start putting more money on it. So if we go with the case of we grow organically with our own money, we grow organically, and then with a small budget, and then we scale at that point of, it works, let us spend more. So how do you go about then marketing such a business?
Oh, well, I think that for any type of business, no matter if they're going with their own budgets or they're they're raising funds, I think that's highly important to understand like what are their business objectives first of all, because this is the point. Sometimes people, like for example, like they would ask, like they would come to me and they'd be like, "Hey, we want to have PR," and I'm like, "Why?
Yeah.
Like, what's the goal? Why would you want that?" And they're like, "Well, we think that's gonna help us with, I don't know, business development." But then it doesn't go further than this. Like, what's the numbers that you're expecting to hit? Do you have like the strategic view? So, because for example, this is not my job as the PR specialist to set up the business objectives for them, right? So,
Story of my life.
I know, right? You probably like know this better than I do. And then the second problem that it happens a lot is that when, even if they have like this business objective, they sometimes can figure out how to couple it, like this top of funnel activities with middle and bottom of funnel activities. And this is like a problem, right? Because in entrepreneurs' mind, public relations are so separate from the marketing tools in general. So they're like, there are two separate ways. And when you're trying to lend all the activities you're doing in terms of like communications, PR, media relations, influencer marketing to what they have with their like middle of funnel and bottom of funnel activities, they're like, but how can we do that? And I'm like, well, probably you should ask your CMO or someone, because this is like, I think so many people are so skeptical about public relations in general for this exact reason, because they don't really understand how to, how to couple and align these things. They just think that it's just gonna be like miraculous thing. They all of a sudden they gain the awareness and the sales appear, and then you're like, no, this is not working like that.
So in this case, so let's say that e-commerce, and obviously the objective is sales for an e-com. So how can they prioritize, you think, their communication efforts? Again, working with a limited budget to make that, because obviously sales happens when you're either advertising or when the brand is known and someone talked about it, or something went viral because you created a post that really resonates with a lot of people. So in terms of communication efforts, let's forget about marketing.
Yeah.
How do you think they could? So what would make like the biggest impact from a communications side?
Well, I think that I would go, if I were in e-commerce and I had limited budgets, I would go with, I would consider partnerships, because this is such a great tool, actually, because it lets you, if it's mutually beneficial, obviously. So you can get to another company and you can create this partnership. It can be either co-branding or distribution if it's e-commerce, right? Or it can be a cost partnership. And this is how you can get to introduce to other people's like audience and demographics if it's relevant to you. And this is how you get like this basic awareness for less budgets. But since it's mutually beneficial for both of the companies, that's like such a great tool that kind of like helps to get to the point where you get more awareness with less budgets. But actually, like I read a couple days ago, I think Faces Beauty Middle East, they have like this partnership with Life Pharmacy nowadays, which allows the Faces to introduce their like customers to the quality skincare brands from Life Pharmacy, and Life Pharmacy gets exposure for the Faces consumers. And since Faces are trying to like establish their positioning as an e-commerce platform nowadays, this is like mutually beneficial for both of the companies. So I would definitely consider that.
Makes sense. Right. I agree. I've done it and I still do it for e-commerce businesses. And I agree, partnerships go a long way, because you suddenly, so one last campaign that I remember, I've done a campaign with Etisalat, and then you're giving like an added value for Etisalat users, and Etisalat obviously has millions of users, so you already tap into Etisalat's network without you spending really $1.
Yeah.
So yes, you're taking part of your margin, but you're not spending
Sure.
anything from your own pocket to reach out to this audience. So I agree, partnerships go a long way. Anything else other than partnerships?
Still, I would like go with the social media and create like quality content in order to like have this emotional connection with my target audience, right?
Quality or quantity?
Quality, definitely. I'm such an advocate for quality over quantity.
Yeah.
It might be contradicting to what you people in marketing normally do because like you have to sell a lot.
Yeah, two ways of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that the like because of the higher level of competition, like it's so important to like create this emotional connection, like, you know, to increase your LTV over your clients or something like that. So any brand that is investing into sustaining community and like creating this emotional connection, they will go the long way. So I would do this as well.
So content, social media content.
Social media content, yes.
Okay. And with a limited budget on social media, especially for B2B businesses, their content is not sexy. The content of B2B is not content that a bigger niche wants to consume. So how would they reach? Because organically, I work with a lot of B2B clients, and I am a B2B business, and it's very difficult to grow organically. So you put something, and then, you know, like best case, if you're starting, you know, few people only see it. Maybe 100 people see it for B2B businesses. If you're not boosting, if you're not working with influencers, so how do you reach a bigger audience when you're starting for startups? We're talking about startups. So how do you reach? So because I tell people, listen, if you want to do social media, yes, it's important to do it because today over 70% of people check your social media pages before talking to you, before buying from you. So it's very important to have presence on social media, and it's very important to post on a regular basis. So when users land, they see that you have been posting for a while, or at least you have few hundred posts, and not they land and you have 2-3 posts, and then last time you posted was a few weeks ago. So it's very important for the brand trust for you to be on social media. Social media is extremely important because it projects who you are as a business, your products, your offering, services, whatever it is, who you are as a business and so forth. The challenge though is, if you're doing it, you do it so that basically what I just mentioned helps the people that land on your page. But if you want to reach a new audience, how do you reach it with a limited budget? To go back to that point that you just mentioned.
It's so interesting how differently we see social media. Like this is the normal conversation between like a person from the PR side and the marketing side.
Okay.
So I'd say that it's actually easier to reach people organically nowadays because each and every platform, doesn't matter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat, they are trying to make their like to make their users to stay on the platform as long as they can, right? So this is why their algorithm are now kind of like trying to figure out if the content is going to be interesting and authentic and something like that. And if it is, they're going to push it themselves like to the wider audience, right? So I'd say that you don't have to have high budgets. You don't have to use, I don't know, like some kind of crazy artificial intelligence in order to create like something crazy reels, or I don't know. You have to be really authentic and have this emotional connection to the people that you want to reach out in order to create like a content, like a storytelling or something that would resonate with them. So that would be like, you know, the something for the algorithm, and they'd be like, yeah, this is such a great piece of content, we're going to push it to more people. So I think it's actually like you have to make a proper research of the pain points of your target audience, but also like not to see them as just demographics, but to realize that there are real people behind it. Would it be interesting for them like to look at the reel that you created when they go to bed, right? Or not? And this is, and I get it, this is very challenging, especially for B2B businesses, because it's hard to, I don't know, present or position something that is purely, I don't know, business oriented, right? But there's so many angles that you can look at it. For example, you can use like humor. You can I don't know, you can use all the memes and like pop culture that's happening or something like that. So I think like the sky is the limit,
Yeah.
really, in this case. But getting back, like taking a step back, you have to understand if you really need this like social media or not. Because, for example, if I were like a B2B business, I would definitely invest my social media efforts into LinkedIn,
Yeah.
right? Not into Instagram Reels, for example. But if I see the perspective where I would need to get like this B2C segment, I would definitely go to TikTok or I don't know,
Yeah.
Instagram.
Okay. So partnerships, social media.
Yeah.
Anything else? With keeping in mind a low communications budget.
No, I think I would definitely focus on this too.
Okay, sounds good. And what are some of the common pitfalls that new entrepreneurs should avoid when it comes to communication and public relations?
So I think, I think the first one is what we already talked about, not seeing the end result. But the second thing is it kind of like it's coming up from the previous statement is that for some reason, especially like startups founders, but entrepreneurs as well, they see paid media channel as something very insulting, like to the point that if someone offers them to be featured in, I don't know, some kind of media outlet, they would consider it as an insult, because there is like the stereotype where if you are newsworthy, people from media would reach out to you and write about you. And this is like such a common misconception, which is, I think personally, that goes from the point where they don't really understand what is the end result they want to see out of their PR campaign again. Because let's talk about B2B business. Again, if you are, if you have the objective to get as many leads as you can, and you know your specific segment you're like trying to reach, and you understand that you would rather, like, for example, you would buy a feature in the specific media that is like, I don't know, each and every person that would potentially buy your product is subscribed to. Obviously, it's so much easier to get this feature and tell everything about your product rather than invest, I don't know, 3 to 6 months into earned media.
Right.
Because it would, like, again, if your objective is to get leads, I would go there. But if it's more like of creating awareness, like grow organically, then of course it's an earned media. So yeah, so I think this this misconception is quite widespread.
Yeah.
And I even like read a thread on LinkedIn the other day where people would be like, no, if you did this, you're not worth the trust, which is,
if you paid.
Yeah, which is such a weird thing to say, because it's just so different from the business point of view. So yeah. So
you're right. Well, the people that work in the communications and the PR and the marketing know that you have to pay. Like now, okay, if it's an amazing something that is completely out of the box, yes, the media outlets will be happy to talk about. But if you're just another Me Too business, then the media agency is not gonna be so excited to talk about it.
True. Well, there is an angle to this. And as a PR specialist, I would say that, of course, like 90% of the time, we are aiming to get earned media exposure rather than paid media.
Right.
However, if it helps to get to the point where you want to be, I wouldn't mind like buying out a feature for my client if I know that it would bring them the results they want to get. So
of course. And it's very important to be on these big publications. So for example, now Golf News last month, or 2 months ago, we're running an offer, let's say for $1,000 a page article with a link, with a do follow link, which is good for SEO.
Yeah, of course.
It costed $1,000 and they were running it, I think, for $400. So for me, from a marketing perspective, it makes a lot of financial sense to invest this $400? Because first of all, I'm getting an article on one of the top publications that they are promoting, and I promote on my social pages, and as this business being featured on a publication like Golf News, I can take that logo and I put it on my website as seen on Golf News and whatever. So it has a lot of value. So not only the impressions or the website traffic, but that has an intangible, benefits, of course.
True. However, I would say that it has to be like a very, strategic decision to go there or not, because they're like, some people tend to think there are only like two formats available, like interview and feature, like all that. But there's so many interesting, I don't know, you can be creative with the paid media as well. Right. You just have to you don't have to be like very straightforward. You have to present it the way it provides value for your potential clients.
Correct.
So just.
And this is where you come in. Or like people like you come in, I mean.
Yes.
Good stuff. So we know that startups, they face the challenge to building credibility because they're not known.
Yeah.
Maybe they have some revenues, maybe they have a good track record, but they're not known. They're not in the media outlets. So if they pitch an investor and this investor puts on Google this brand name and whatever reviews or whatever that is, they're probably nowhere to be seen because not a lot of people, not a lot of outlets, not a lot of channels have talked about them. So it is difficult to build that credibility when they go and pitch to investors and to win, of course, customers. What do you recommend? What strategy do you recommend for startups to establish themselves as trustworthy and reputable brands?
Okay, so this question has like two angles to look at. First of all, if we are talking about startups, especially in their early stages, it's highly important to be transparent, timely, sincere with what they're doing. Because venture capital and private equity is such it's the industry based on trust, right. And it has word of mouth there is enormous. So if you're startups sometimes tend to have like this fake it till you make it type of content, which is totally not right to do in the current days. So I'd say that they have to be very, very transparent of what's happening with them. Even if the traction is not perfect, it would be better to showcase that, yes, we're facing struggles, but this is what we're going to do, because it just kind of demonstrates that the CEO and the team, they have a plan, and it kind of sends the positive signal to the investors.
Right.
So this is the first thing. And what they can do with that, they can use owned media for this, right? They can use their blogs or, again, social media platforms or LinkedIn pages, anything basically. But the second angle to look at this is that I personally met investors who are being very skeptical about startups that have wide media representation, because it's all about balance. And when the founder is here and there and doing podcasts or, I don't know, getting into Forbes ratings or something like that, it kind of creates the image that they're more into media representation rather than running their business. So nowadays investors are being a little skeptical about that. So it's about right balance. So I'd say being transparent, use public relations, use owned media, but do it in a very subtle and transparent way.
Okay. That helps build credibility with investors?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And potential customers. Okay. Can you maybe share some low-cost PR tactics for startups? So can you share some creative low-cost PR tactics that startups can employ to gain attention and traction in the industry? So creative low-cost PR tactics.
We kind of covered it a little bit when we talked about partnerships with B2B projects. I'd go with the same, like it's partnerships, it's quality social media content, and maybe if you have like enough creativity in your team, I will go into guerrilla marketing, which is not really like PR thing, more of like a marketing thing, but there are so many great examples of how it can be done. I don't know, like from maybe one of the most well-known examples is like it's an oldie but goodie. Like back in the days when PayPal just started, they had like this issue where they froze the money of their consumers, but they had like this huge developer conference, and there was another startup which was called WePay, as far as I remember. I might be wrong. So anyway, what they did, they kind of like used the conference. They brought there like a huge block of ice with money frozen inside, and they left it right there. And obviously, PayPal conference, like it had so many representatives of the media and investors and everything, and like all of a sudden they see like this huge block of ice with money like literally frozen in there, which says like PayPal froze my money, like I'd better go to the WePay or something like that, which is kind of like, I'm pretty sure it was super cheap, like it was basically no cost activity. But it had such a huge enormous like impact on what happened after, which is, if I remember correctly, ironically, PayPal did the same at the eBay conference like a couple years before. So it was like the irony of the situation was crazy. So I would, getting back to the question, I would recommend, again, take a look at the partnerships, create quality social media content, and consider guerrilla marketing if it's applicable.
Okay. So like what you have some examples for guerrilla marketing? Low cost for B2B businesses and maybe tech, now that you like focus on that.
I think this is not really like guerrilla marketing. Well, I mean, it could be, but you know this like Chinese platform AliExpress, right?
Yeah, of course.
And you know how they target their ads, like they would get the craziest products available, and they would target it to like, people who are potentially like in their like buying segments. And it has like definitely no one would even buy a wig for your dog or something like that, but people would share it a lot. And this is how they get, I think, I don't know, but maybe the cost of this ads is lower than if you're selling the really functional products.
Right.
But this is how they get like this exposure, and people just get to the platform and they search for all the bizarre things, and then all of a sudden they find, I don't know, something they would really use.
Correct. Makes sense. And what about the influencers for B2B? Do you have any experience with that? Does it make sense? Because it could be cost effective if you're working with not the macro influencers, like if you do like maybe some barter agreements with them.
I personally don't have experience working with influencers for like B2B businesses, but from what I heard from other specialists is that it kind of like what happens nowadays is that it's quality over quantity, because the budgets are getting lower because the market situation is a little bit like complicated because of all the things happening, like geopolitical situation, like after COVID and everything. So the influencers are trying to get more and more products in order to get to the level that they used to have like before 2021 or something like that. And this kind of like, this has like a couple problems, because when the influencer is not emotionally connected to the product they are representing, like a consumer can definitely feel it. And like how many times you have to see the product in order to buy it? Like it was 5 to 7 times a couple of years ago. Now it's probably even more, right? And then you're like, well, it doesn't look attractive to me. So I wouldn't buy it. And then you have to like increase the number of touches with your audience in order to like finally sell it. So what many companies are doing nowadays, they're like creating these affiliate programs where influencers, they get kind of like, percentage
cut,
of sales or something like that, or
revenue share.
revenue share. Yeah, exactly. And this is how they have to, like, if they're committing to this, they probably really believe in the product, because otherwise that wouldn't be beneficial for them. And this is how they establish the connection.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And how important is effective communication to build strong relationships with investors? And what strategies can startups employ to keep investors engaged and informed about their progress?
I think it's highly important. Again, it's in the field where trust is the leading, is the thing that is extremely important. Like, if you break the trust of the investors once, you would never, like, it would be so hard for you to regain it. So I think like my strategy would be like to share as much as I can about the success that my company has performed, but don't make it, like, don't exaggerate it. Definitely, like, trying to convey the message that I see where I'm going, and I'm very sincere and open about that. And this is like our challenging we're facing, but this is how we solve them. And this is where PR comes in handy, because it's, in terms of storytelling, it's always interesting to read how people overcome challenges rather than how they got to the point of like success, right? So this is what I would do. I would, like, if I have a public relations specialist in my team, I would go to the media. If I don't, I would use owned media. I would definitely create a blog or LinkedIn page at least, and make it active, make it like readable, make it interesting. So this is where I would go. The other thing is that I would want to share here is that, so we are now living in the paradigm of, you probably heard it, like something that is called new sincerity, which kind of like a concept that contradicts postmodernism and cynicism and irony and all of this, like, skeptical things. Yeah. Basically, it means that the narrative nowadays has to be about being vulnerable, sincere, and kind of like, childish. And this is where, like, it's very cool. This is what people want to read. Yeah. This is what they want to see. And you can use this in the storytelling and, I don't know, share how you overcome some challenges, or this is something that happened to you and something like that. But this is also a great way to share what your values are about. Yeah. But this is, again, getting back to the concept of faking till you make it. Some companies prefer to adopt a strategy and tell the content that is very inauthentic to them. Hence, all the greenwashing scandals, right? They would go there, they would try to fake that this is important for them. And then in the end, like, truth always gets to the consumers. For example, and it's not like a startup, but Keurig, the coffee company, right? They had this scandal where they claimed that their pots are being recyclable. And then it was proven that they are not recyclable. And then they had to pay a $3 million fine, which was kind of like not a huge amount of money for for someone like Keurig. And it's kind of like, it's cheaper for them. It was cheaper for them to apologize than to actually make their pots recyclable. But if we talk about like small businesses or startups, and if they're trying to share something inauthentic to them, and they kind of like, and investors or consumers see them, they can break the trust, which is totally not what you would want to do in the beginning. Yeah, because like it's so hard to gain it back.
Right. Especially in a market like this.
Oh yeah.
Very, very small. All VCs know each other. It's very easy to pick up the phone and ask about this.
Absolutely,
startups.
yes.
Makes sense. What emerging communication channels or technologies do you see as particularly promising for marketers to explore in the coming years?
Again, I will go with the partnerships. We talk a lot about this today, but this is such a great tool. And again, we are living in the era where brands are having limited budgets, like the times where money was all over, like it's gone now. So we have to find the tools that are kind of cost effective, and partnerships is one of those. So I would definitely go into there, especially for consumer brands, because this is like so beneficial for them. And I would say that pay attention to the social media trends, because it's getting better and better. It's kind of like you can compare what's happening nowadays in Instagram, for example, to what has been in 2015. You just have to pay attention. So yeah, I'll go with partnerships and social media.
Again. Okay.
Yes.
So you would say that these are the emerging channels, communication channels.
Well, they're not emerging.
Yeah.
I mean, they all have they all existed for such a long time.
Right.
But my bet would be on them.
Yeah. On social and on.
I mean, this is like the interesting thing is how you can build community around your brand.
Yeah.
And how you can reach out to your consumers. So the easiest way is through social media.
Right.
There is like no easier way, right, for this. So yeah, so I would go definitely with partnerships, because this is how you can reach more people, and then with social media in order to have them engaged with the community activities you're having.
Cool. What are some techniques or frameworks that marketers can use to craft compelling brand narratives that resonate with the target audience values, aspirations, and emotions?
Okay, and we are getting here back to the point where we have to be sincere and vulnerable and not being afraid of showing the weak parts of the business, because this is what resonates with the audience nowadays.
Yeah.
There is there are some boring frameworks that you can use. I don't want to get into those, but I'd say that go for it. Don't be afraid to show that you or your business is not perfect and you have challenges or something like that. So definitely this, don't be afraid to talk about the fails that you have. Be open about it. Yeah, just be authentic. And again, don't try to fake something that is not authentic to you. Just be you.
Makes sense. From your experience, do you think creating brand values, business values, mission, vision, the motto and the statement and all those, are these important for startups, for the investors, and to win new clients? Is it important, you think, or not? How important is it, you'd say?
I'd say extremely.
Really?
Absolutely. Well, I know some people. This is interesting, because some people tend to think this is just I don't know, some kind of branding learn book. It's something that doesn't matter. But I think this is so important, especially for the founder of the company, because if the founder of the company can tell what are the emotional and rational benefits of his product or service are, right, that is very alarming. Me as a consumer, I would want to give my money to someone who's kind of who shares the values that are important to me, rather than to anyone else.
As a consumer,
of
from
course.
From a B2B perspective. So let me give an example, because I'm going through this as we speak. And today, people want to do business with us as an agency because of us as people, because of the people that they meet, and because of the work that we have done, right?
Yes.
So yes, they like us, they like what we're saying, they feel that we are good, we're gonna take care of them, we're not gonna drop the ball,
Yeah.
we're gonna do as we promise. And they see that we've done the right work for similar businesses. They could see that we have the right expertise, etc. They sign with us. But do they really care about our mission, our vision, about who we are and what we're planning to do in the future and who we want to be? I don't know. How important is that?
Why do you think they go with you in the first place?
So do they really care? My question is like, do they really care about my mission and my vision? I don't remember any client asking me or potential client asking me, where do you want to be in 5 years or 10 years time as a business? Or what are your values as a business? What do you stand for? I don't remember them asking. So maybe they pick it up from us.
Yes.
But I don't remember my vision and my mission as a business. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but this is where I don't think it's as straightforward as you mentioned it. For example, I think you have, like, there is something that is highly important for you when you're like developing your business, who you're working with, what are the standards you're implementing in working with your clients, or what are the ethics of working with them, right? You probably have it. You might not be able to put us into words, but it's somewhere inside your brain or somewhere in the gut, right? And this all ends up in the portfolio of the clients that you have and the word of mouth and everything, which kind of works for you and brings you like new clients in there, right? And they would go with you because they kind of like subconsciously they feel that this is the standards they are looking for, and they would go with you and not with the other agency. So I think it's not about like if someone asks you what are the values. I mean, no, the values are important. What is the mission of your company? And you're like something, right? It's more about what you really believe in and how you like what are the standards for your business that you're creating for yourself.
These are the values. You're right.
Yes.
So they feel the value.
Yes.
And that's what maybe you're right. So they feel it, but they don't necessarily care about, maybe investors, investors, of course, they care about your mission and vision. Like why you're building what you're building and where you want to take it, right? And yes, we're interested in being part of it or not. But for consumers, for other B2B businesses, when I sit with marketing directors or with CMOs or CEOs of other businesses, that's why I'm asking how important it is on a scale of 1 to 10, how important vision and mission is.
But again, if you're
the
working
mission statement or whatever.
Yeah, if you're working with other CMOs or something like that, they are interested in building like a long collaboration rather than something like if it's not a project work, right? So they would want to go with someone who they're comfortable working with, who is like, who shares the same view on the work processes and everything like that. And I think this goes to this part of the brand pyramid or whatever it's called, right? Because it might not be put into words again, but it's the DNA of the brand of the company you're building. So I think it's like a great exercise for everyone who's in business to try to put this into words. Because of course, there are businesses that are just like, that were created in order to just, get profits. That's it. But most of the businesses nowadays, they are like, they have their points of view and they have their standards and everything. And this is what goes into the basement of this.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. Awesome.